All right, so I'm giving you this lecture because I would assume that the majority of arguments that Americans see are visual or a combination of visual and text. Uh, and in fact, you can take entire courses of this in business administration or if you're in a marketing uh, major. So one of the things, and I put this here because when I first saw this ad, I'm like, no way. What you'll find is that an awful lot of advertising to get you to buy things is normally a sexually visual argument in some way or another. So just be aware of that. This one is a little outlandishly obvious with its sexuality, but be aware of it. So there's special features to a visual argument is that it's immediate and tangible. Uh, it doesn't take you a while to assess what the argument is. As you saw in that previous photo, the argument's pretty quick. Uh, you can also do a good job of establishing common ground with people. For the most part, it tends to evoke emotional response, which can be good and sometimes maybe not so good. You can juxtapose uh, different categories. You can employ icons such as the American flag. We're going to see a lot of political advertising in the next 6 months, and there'll be a lot of icons of freedom and liberty and democracy in those ads. And you can also have symbols, and you can do what's called framing. So the way to think about framing is that if you look at a painting of like a landscape, right, and there's some hills and a little bit of forest, maybe a river running through the painting. That landscape has been framed literally by a frame because when the artist was looking at the landscape went beyond what's on that canvas, but he or she could only paint a portion of it, so he framed it. So the same thing with visual arguments is you can frame the argument to say what you want it to say, which is why you have to be even more careful with visual arguments than you do with regular arguments because they're easily manipulated. And it also allows for various interpretations by different people. So those are the essential features. So the same as a written argument, though it will have a claim, it'll have some type of evidence, hopefully, in it. And then the warrants, the unstated premises and assumptions that we talked about in the toll mean. So, and like the written, there should be some facts, statistics, definition, expert testimony that goes along with this one when there's text that goes with it. So, you know, for a toothpaste, it may say that 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this. Uh, and we'll look at this later because this is an ad populum. Uh, Ad populum? No, that's the wrong name of the fallacy. It's an appeal to authority. And this is a fallacious argument. All right. And so we'll talk about this when we get to fallacies. But again, it tends to appeal a lot to people's beliefs, their values, and their emotions. Now, when you combine it with text, you look at it by itself, the visual, and then you look at it with the text. And with the text, you want to consider what's actually being said. You want to consider the color of the text. You can actually take an entire course if you're a marketing major in color. Just what are the effects certain colors have on different people or on people in general. Then look at the images, look at the overall design. So we're not going to get into this in this course, but you can go into other courses where you spend a lot more time on this looking at it. All right, so a lot of times the text is very brief, mixed with the and reflects the image itself. Sometimes it is the image. There was a great advertisement against landmines by this nonprofit group, and what it was is they had a young woman who was missing a leg, and her leg had been replaced with a leg made from text, and the text was the argument about landmines. Uh, Look at the style. Different styles evoke different emotions. Color is huge. So red tends to be for passion, browns tend to be for the earth mother, greens tend to be for growth. Yellow tends to be calming, which you wouldn't think, but it is. And then look at the size of the text in relation to the image. Uh, so consider how the text and the image are appropriate to one another. Think if you're making an argument yourself, number of images you should use. If you use too many, you kind of like water down the entire argument. Look at where you're positioning it, and if you're going to use it in your paper, make sure it's cited properly. Where'd you get the image from? All right, now when you're critiquing a visual argument, look for the claim. Decide what's actually being argued. Uh, so in that first image I showed you of the woman on the horse, the argument is that perfume is going to make you sexy and is going to fulfill all your sexual desires. Look for any evidence and proofs within the image. Use your Aristotelian uh, argument pattern of logos, pathos, and ethos, and then look for visual fallacies. They're a little harder to find than other fallacies, but they can be. Now, be careful of misleading images. Uh, People tend to believe what they see, and images can easily be manipulated. I'm not very good at Photoshop, and I can manipulate things in Photoshop to make you believe something occurred that didn't. So, why I'm giving you this thing is years ago, Iran made a big deal about having these new missiles that were able to reach, I don't forget, at least to Israel, but I don't remember how far they were able to reach. But if you look in the left-hand image, three of the missiles have gone off and one has not. One was a dud. Now, look on the right. That's how they released the image. They redid it. And if you look, the one that now did not go at all is almost as high as the one that took off at first. So be careful. A lot of times images are manipulated and you should question them more than any argument. All right, now when you're looking again at it, how do the elements actually work together? How much text is there? What type of font? Is there a claim within the text? What are the connotations of the image? What are the emotional associations with it? And what colors are being used?